Hello, everyone. You're all muted, so I'm guessing you're all saying hello back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, we're gonna give it a couple of minutes. There are a couple of people still in the waiting room. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our second WBENC Women of Color Power Hour. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Audrey Wassam and I am the WBENC Program Lead for the Women of Color Program. As part of our 2020 vision, this series aims to ignite the power of the WBENC ecosystem by leveraging our network to ensure that our WBEs like you thrive in this environment. I would like to thank our sponsors, the Coca-Cola Company, Walmart, JP Morgan Chase & Co., and Southern California Edison for making programming like this possible. As a quick reminder, please list any questions that you have throughout the duration of this program at the chat box below for Melissa, our speaker, and she'll be sure to answer them at the end of the presentation. Now, I am so excited to introduce our moderator for this session, Fela Meyer, who is the president of WBENC South, one of our 14 regional partner organizations. Fela.
Hi, how is everybody? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is so great to see everybody. I'm just looking at how many squares there are on my screen right now, and that is amazing. Welcome to WBENC's second Power Hour, and this is truly amazing. We've had over 500 people who pre-registered for this event. I am seeing so many of your faces here and many more that I know I can't see, but I do want to welcome you all and thank you all so much for taking time out of your afternoon. I know in this age of Zoom overload, you know, it's very hard to figure out what's important, and so many of you all have found importance and relevance to what WBENC is doing here with their Women of Color program, with the Women of Color Power Hour, and just bringing us so much dynamic content and dynamic speakers, and today is no exception. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker because we have limited time. She has a lot to say, and then we're going to encourage you to engage with the chat so that you can continue to ask questions throughout the program, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. But without further ado, let me introduce our speaker, Melissa Dawn Simkins. She is affectionately known as the First Lady of Personal Branding and is a pioneer in personal brand leadership with a proven track record of advising Fortune 100 organizations, CEOs, executive, and influencers. She is a sought-after strategist on how to lead change in the face of adversity. Relevance and readiness are core to her brand building approach as she gives insight to future-ready leadership, bridging the diversity divide and brand innovation from the inside out. She is the CEO of Velvet Suite, an award-winning leadership innovation firm offering scalable solutions to advance the future of profit through people. She is the founder of the She-Suite Summit and the She-Suite Community, the premier personal brand leadership community bringing women together to learn, live, and lead on the next level. You can learn more at melissadawnsimkins.com. There's a lot more to say about her, and there's a lot more information that you're going to get as we move on through the program. But right now, I think it's important that we share this video with you. It'll tell you a lot about her and speaks to the heart of who Melissa is and her challenge for all of us today. After this video, we will welcome Melissa herself, the CEO of Velvet Suite. She will take us on a journey for our session, Brand Me, Creating Opportunities in Unprecedented Times.
Like I can conquer the world. Other days, not so much. But there is one thing that keeps me going every single day, and that's purpose. Pressure did not come to break you.
Branding expert Melissa Dawn Simkins.
Purpose is this calling that will not stop ringing my phone. It's so amazing that it draws me in every single day. When I'm feeling tired, when I want to quit, when I'm saying how much longer, it's just there. And it says, Melissa, this isn't about you. It's bigger than you. And so if I could say anything, it would be, we have to dare to live the life that we desire. And I think my life's mission is about awakening the extraordinary in everyday people. Like, how do you become extraordinary? My life is pretty ordinary. My background, where I came from, was pretty ordinary. But I know that there is an extraordinary purpose for my life. I would say my vision for the work that I do and the people that I impact is that I want all of us to level up to that extraordinary life and do our best work and live our best life. I want to keep daring. I don't want to live ordinary. Life is too short. We don't get a second chance. And when I think about my greatest accomplishments, my greatest life's work, it has to do with me becoming the woman that I am today. It has to do with becoming a wife, becoming a mommy, and having a beautiful family. Daring to be an entrepreneur and lead a different type of business. The daring to believe that I could actually create a community virtually through the Brand Leadership Institute that would allow me to connect with people from all across the world. So bottom line, my message is this: focus on daring to live the life you dream right now.
Well, hello. Hello. How are we feeling out there? Listen, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to get in the chat and type a one-word opener. Like, how are you feeling? Just give me one word. My word for today is expectant. And it is my honor, my privilege, my purpose to be with you today. And I know that we all are juggling this work-life thing. I mean, every day I'm struggling to do it better. And now more than ever, you know, we're in this age and this time where there's so many things competing for our attention, and it's very, very difficult to stay motivated. So my job today is to bring some data, some insight and inspiration to help us embrace this concept of brand me, owning your value and owning your worth, and creating opportunity in unprecedented times. So I want to thank WBENC, first of all, for the opportunity to be here with you. I am in the Northern Virginia area and a part of the Women's Presence Organization, and I thank the sponsors. Now more than ever, we want to see companies not only talk it, but we want to see them walk it by investing in programs like this. So thank you to Coca-Cola, JP Morgan, Chase, Southern California Edison, as well as Walmart. So I hope that you are ready, and I hope that you are locked in. I want to encourage you right now, as I always do when we're connecting virtually. I'm a very hands-on kind of person, so I do my best to convey the energy that I would if I was looking you in the eyeball. But I want to encourage you right now to turn off your phone. If you can, you know, ask the kids to give you a few minutes if you're homeschooling. I want you to really clear your space, clear your mind, and give yourself permission to be present. Because the gift that I have found in doing this work is that it's about being present. When we're present, we are able to create our future. And I want to share a story with you. Many, many years back, one of my first jobs was working for Victoria's Secret. And in that role, I did the first ever multicultural marketing plan for the new millennium. So it tells you a little bit about how long ago that was. And I thought about that proposal and that plan and understanding multicultural women, women of color, many, many years back. And then versus now. I think about where I was in my life and career and what life changes and experiences and even entrepreneurship has brought to my life. But let's bring this down to the relevance of why we're here today. And I think it's important to understand that there's a dynamic shift that's happened in the marketplace and also in how we are recognized and becoming more and more necessary in our culture and in our companies. So back then, when I put that proposal together, it was like, hey, let's invest in programs that speak to multicultural women. Now, it's not about the program. We want you to invest in us. We want you to put the proof behind the words and put the money where your mouth is. We want you to invest in us. It used to be about commercial. How do we create more? Back then, I'm a marketer by trade, if you didn't know. And it was, can we get more women of color in advertisements and print ads? And we need to reflect visually them so that we can see them in those places. And now it's not just about being seen in ads. It's about a call for evidence, proof, and accountability. Next, it was about assimilation, coming into the culture and being recognized and rewarded. And we'll talk a little bit about why that concept and that history for us as multicultural leaders and women specifically has a place to play for branding. But now it's about access. It's about representation and about ownership. And so I believe you showed up today because you're ready to take on the challenge. And the truth of the matter is the numbers don't lie. And there's lots of stats and data that WBENC provides and other organizations, but a couple that I wanted to highlight is really about how we are projected to be the majority of working women. And that is a pretty astonishing stat, but by 2060. Also that we are launching companies 4 times the rate of other women-owned businesses since 2018. And also, according to Inc., 62% of women that they surveyed were at corporations before they started their business. So there is a desire and aspiration in women of color to lead and to represent and to do something great. And so we want to harness that in energy. We want to harness that insight to funnel it in this time of change, in this time of challenge that we're embracing. And I said in the end of that video, build the life that you want right now. And I call the now moment, no opportunity waits. So if we get that sense of urgency in our gut, it will cause us to move and to act in different ways that will help us to push past fear and uncertainty. So I want to ask you, what is your now moment? I want you to give a shout out to your company, because it's all about building the brand and being proud of where you come from, the company, your name, where you're from. And I also want to encourage you to do a social shout out to myself and to WBENC. Share with us your, we're not together, but take a picture. Show us how you're capturing this now moment. You showed up for a reason. And I want to encourage you to tag me in social, if you like LinkedIn, whatever, Facebook, Instagram, and we'll gift a follower from each of our social channels with a free copy of my book, Brand Me. So let's get involved and let's move forward. So Brand Me, what does that mean? People say, oh, is that about, social promotion and getting your name out in social media? Is it about getting promoted? Is it about getting more clients? Is it about competing against the industry leaders in your field? I want to give you our definition from a Velvet Suite perspective of branding. Your brand is the promise and perception of lifetime value. Another way that I can put it is an illustration. So if I put this up, you see this? What is this? It's money, right? Paper. Put this up. What is this? Paper. Both of them, quote unquote, paper. One has value. The other one is overlooked, undervalued, and looked at as trash. The importance of brand right now is not it's not a nice to have. It is an absolute necessity, because everything that we trade upon, whether it's relationships, contacts, contracts, jobs, opportunities, is based on value. And so my job and what my purpose is to help you unpack value and how to leverage that value over the course of time and over the course of your life. And now more than ever, this is a unique opportunity. And I will pause and say this. These last few weeks, these last few months, we can all be honest, have been difficult. They have been the test of all of us, because there are so many things that have been out of our control and so many things that have historical context that are weighing our society and are impacting us. And the other day I was here in my office working, and my husband gave me this awesome gift, and I just had it on my desk because I love tea. I don't know about you, if you like coffee, whatever your choice of beverage is, but mine is tea, and it says wartime leader. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I can do this. Matter of fact, I was born for this. I was born for this moment. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how trying and taxing it is as an entrepreneur to reinvent, reinvest, tweak, pivot, all these things that we do. If you are on the line and you're an entrepreneur, you're doing the same thing, you know, trying to keep your job, trying to build your team, trying to expand and meet the needs of the market. All of us are built for this moment. We can be wartime leaders. And so no matter who's on the line, and I'm excited because we've got a lot of great people who've reached out to me. Some of you guys are starting your careers or you're launching in entrepreneurship. I call it intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. I might look through the comments of what you said you wanted to get out of here. And some of you are pivoting and starting something new. Others of you are in your mid-career, you're kind of getting your sales and you're trying to say, okay, now I've got to think about how to refine what I'm doing. I need to cut costs. I need to look at building a scale and maybe even shifting in the way that I go to market or how I grow my visibility in my current role. Others of you are in legacy, right? You've kind of made it to the pinnacle of what is you've defined success. And now it's like, what's my exit strategy? How am I transitioning to what's next? I want to build thought leadership. Maybe I want to be on a board. I want to give back. So in an audience like this, we've got a lot of people. And then we have some great allies who said, I'm showing up. Men and other women who are saying, you know what, I want to be a part of this conversation. Thank you all for being here. We're going to do our best to dive into content and find your fit. There's going to be content here that will be relevant to where you are. And I hope that you'll be able to use it going forward. So one of the things that I believe is important as a leader in the work that I do is it's important for me to be transparent and to share my story, but also share my challenges. And I find that one of the biggest frustrations I have is sometimes leaders don't do that and they kind of keep it to themselves. And my whole concept of Brand Me has really been about me being my first client. There is a quote that I use in my business that I use as my laws of leadership, kind of my values that I share with my team. And it's never trust a leader who doesn't walk with a limp. If you hadn't been through it, it's very hard to talk about it beyond theory. There's a lot that I will try to unpack, and I can't unpack my whole story, but understand that the limp that I have has been given to me because of what I've experienced. And so that is how I approach today's session, is to give you not only tools and resources and insight from what's worked with our clients, but also to use me as an illustration to kind of lay for you my recipe book on how to begin to build a brand from wherever you are. If you feel like you're unknown and unrecognized in what you do, if you feel like you've been at the pinnacle and suddenly your competition's coming to eat your lunch, whether you're like, you know what, I've been doing this job and I don't even know if I like it anymore. What am I supposed to do? Or, oh my gosh, COVID has totally devastated everything that I'm doing and I'm scared and I'm not sure, how do I rebuild? I got you. That's why you showed up today. So we're going to take it from my recipe. My grandmother used to make this amazing, she's no longer with us. My grandma Jessie used to make this amazing pound cake. And I had the recipe, but there was something missing because I couldn't get the cake just right. So I'm gonna give you the recipe, but how you do it is how you're gonna make it your special, what I call secret sauce. I'm gonna give you some of mine as well. So 3 things we're gonna cover today. And there's a lot of that I'd love to share with you, but we have a limited amount of time and we really wanna make sure we get to your questions. Part 1 is the MVP mentality. I'm gonna break that down for you. Part 2 is permission to pivot. And part 3 is building your platform. And I'm just curious in the chat, like, what are some of the things that you would consider to be your recipe for personal branding? I am the facilitator of this learning experience, but there's folks that are here that probably have some great knowledge and insights that they want to share. So feel free to make those comments in the chat. We want to keep you engaged, and let's go. So Brand Me recipe, step number 1. The MVP mentality. And I stand before you as someone who comes across as very confident, and people say, oh, you're so articulate and all of this stuff. Well, let me tell you the truth. I am a recovering introvert. I was petrified of speaking in public. My mother, when I think I was in like the 5th or 6th grade, asked me to do a public speaking class. And then I went on to do forensics, which is public speaking. And I found a love for communication, but it wasn't natural. And part of the reason why that wasn't natural is because early on in my childhood, my father is the first to go to college in his family. My father not only went to college, but he got his PhD. And you have to understand, we're from Gary. My dad's side of the family from Gary, you know, Jackson 5, Michael Jackson. My grandfather worked in the steel mill. I don't even think that my grandfather completed 6th grade. And I don't believe he could read. He was literate. So it was a big step for our family to see my father go to college and to see us then go on to college. And my grandfather knew that value of education. So he even would walk around back then in Gary and pick up cans and put that aluminum and trade it in for money to help us create a college fund. For years he did that. And I remember my first day going to school. My home is North Carolina. That's where I grew up. But prior to that, my dad was finishing school. And I was in kindergarten, I believe. And I get on the bus and no one wants to let me sit down because I'm Black. My neighbor's grandmother calls my sister and I, which is Angela in this picture, colored kids. And I am devastated because I'm like, why doesn't anyone like me? And I'm sure in this day and age of what we're dealing with today, many of you who are parents are having to have this conversation about race with your children. And I share that to say that then later on, we moved to North Carolina, and I had never, which is where I grew up, seen so many Black people in my life, because I was living in a town where my sister and I were at the time, our first time going to school, we're the only Black kids in the entire school. And so it was two totally different dynamics, right? Black, white, you know, and there was this dichotomy in my head. And I went through challenges there where I was light skinned, or I was, you know, I was an outsider, or, you know, I thought I was this, or I thought I was that. And so what it came to help me understand is that there's a social, societal construct around identity, but there's a self-construct around identity. And we've got to be able to, as women of color, understand that we've got to break through the societal definitions in order to truly have our identity. And part of what helped me do that was my family, was my culture, my community. And I really began to see that I believe all of this coming back together where we are today has a lot to do with that. So my path, like yours, we do this in our coaching program, the Brand Leadership Institute. We help you kind of do this career map. And whether it's personal or professional, I like to think of that as leadership as a lifestyle. And the reason I bring this up is because there's experiences and opportunities and things that have happened around the course of your life that have happened to you personally, that have happened to you professionally, that are shaping who you are. And who you are has little to do with the labels that society will try to give you. It has to do with you doing the work to uncover that value. And over time, it's been amazing to me to hear where we've come from, to see what experiences I've had and not having access and all of these things, but to be able to do the work that I've done, work with these individuals personally and work with them through my career and work with these amazing companies. It's again showing you that there is a blueprint to this. And the way that we've defined our brand as a company is my personal brand, but then the company brand, which focuses on enterprise solutions, Velvet Suite, around talent development and leadership acceleration. And then a community brand that has evolved that starts with women and helping us go through that pipeline and supporting entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. And so what I have come to understand through my life experiences, through my educational experiences, and through the competencies and capabilities of what we do every day is there's a formula for brand leadership success. And I want to share it with you. So I want to ask you, as I'm sharing this with you, which one of these areas have you focused on and what areas are you interested in learning more? So the first is performance, right? So that is what we do. At the end of the day, your brand means nothing. You have no credibility if you're not able to deliver value, if you're not able to do that. Next, it's identity. So the idea of defining identity, as I see it, is not just about what society says. It's about who you define yourself as. That's where the MVP comes in mind. But it's not just that. A lot of times we just focus on performance. We think if we just work hard enough, if we just do a good job. No, it's image. It's how people perceive us. And it's influence, which is what other people say when we're not in the room. This is the formula that I have discovered, and it's so empowering because I will never be fired. I will never be hired. I show up because I know how to work my formula. I know how to do this, and I continue to increase my value over time. Now, why this is so important for particularly women of color, and I think it's important for those of you who are not to tune in here and really understand the dynamics that shape how our value is perceived. One is that we are always told, for the most part, that hard work pays off, right? If you go to the right schools, if you get the right grades, if you work hard, you know, we talk about that, but it's more than that. It's also this idea of identity, which is self-identity, right? And through that, we are able to work out and become good at what we do, and we find our passions, and we get greater experience, and we get greater exposure. We say, you know what, we're really like this. I really don't like that. I'm really good at this. I really want to solve that problem. And we build a case. But where we miss the opportunity is making sure identity is reflected in our image, because societally, people get valued based on how they look. Do they fit in? Do they have the right social proof, the right social structures? You know, I'm from the South. I don't have an accent, but I did many years ago, right? So I was judged based on that. Do you sound threatening? Do you sound like you're assertive? Do you sound like you're weak? You know, all of these things are perceptions that people have that they're defining our value. And there's a saying that I say is, your brand isn't what you say, it's what other people believe. So if it's what other people believe, how do you help them believe what you want them to believe, which is true about who you are? That gets to the definition of promise and perception. So that includes mobility, capital, mentors, networks, partnerships, connecting to content like this. It's all about self-investment so that you can elevate your value. So I'm curious, as you see this, what areas have you focused on, and what areas do you feel like you need to elevate? And the reason this is important for women of color is because we are often undervalued and overlooked. That is often why we leave corporate jobs, because we don't know how to elevate and define our value and position ourselves in a way that we get our value. And in spite of the obstacles and things that we come across, one of the keys to your formula to do this is the MVP. Everything that we do with Velvet Suite is based on building MVPs and creating this MVP mentality. It's mission, vision, and purpose. At the end of the day, every organization does not exist without a why. You don't exist without a why. Do you know what it is? Every organization exists for a mission. That's the what that you're going to do. And the vision is where you see yourself going and how you're going to get there. So we have to take the time as leaders. If we are the most valuable asset in our business, if we're the most valuable asset in our career, we've got to take the time to invest to discover our MVP and use that mentality to navigate obstacles, oppositions, disappointments, changes that are out of our control, like what we're dealing with right now. And through this MVP, it becomes our secret sauce to be able to win in the face of adversity, to win and turn what seems like downsides into opportunities. So I'm just curious to see, what are some of the things that you've done to write your MVP? And I think that MVP, purpose, always outperforms. It's the foundation, and it really gives us the ability to elevate and move forward. So what the other thing, I'm reading this awesome book called Essentialism, and some of you may have read it before. If you have, tell me some of the things that you found are fascinating about the book. But one of the reasons why this is so important right now, raise your hand if you can, I don't know if you can on the chat, if you are just overwhelmed and you don't have enough time in the day. It seems like this COVID thing caused life to slow down. And I think it was a great opportunity for us to reevaluate through a pause. It's a strategic pause. And sometimes we don't realize, because we lack clarity of focus, and because we're good at one thing, which opens up another thing and another thing, and people recognize our value and they begin to ask us and draw us into other projects, opportunities, we become stretched thin, we become overwhelmed, and we become burnt out. So another essential for women in particular is the understanding that MVP simplifies. It gets us really clear on what we value, what's a priority, what is it that we need to delegate, what is it that we need to say no to? And no is a complete sentence. It gives meaning to life. I was on an accountability call. I'm a part of an entrepreneurial accountability group, and we had our monthly accountability call, and we were talking about pivoting and what's going on, and everyone was sharing their story. And one of the entrepreneurs was just saying, I'm just so exhausted, I'm tired and overwhelmed. And one of the coaches said, well, you know, maybe it's time to look at, you know, how is this giving you a clue of maybe something that you need to shift? And maybe this is a good thing, because it's giving you a clue that something is different that needs to be shifted. It also reveals the clutter, right? We all have clutter in our lives, in our desk, in our closet. but it gives us the opportunity to really streamline and simplify, which gives us freedom. And I think everybody wants more freedom in their life. So every one of my brand recipe elements, I'm going to give you a health check. And I want to ask you to do a health check. You know, all of us go to the doctor, hopefully at some point in time in our life. We should be going as frequently as is prescribed or recommended. Your brand is a living, breathing value, right? So you need to do a health check. So I'm going to ask you to do a health check on defining your why. Have you written an MVP? Have you clarified your audience? Have you defined a problem? Have you doubled down on your difference? And have you focused your position? These are all key foundational elements of building the brand that will help you begin to have that foundation to navigate what we have next. And I wanted to share this with you. You cannot own your voice until you own your value. So value starts with knowing your why, knowing your mission, and knowing your vision. So the recipe today for this section is I want you to take away clarifying your MVP, dare to be different, and be more focused on creating freedom. Enterprise-wise, if you're working for an organization, it's about creating alignment and challenging your employees to align as well. Some resources I can provide, and we'll provide these for you after, as well as several books. That's what I would call as my secret sauce, reading and learning from others. Part 2, permission to pivot. Pivot doesn't necessarily mean it's a disaster. It means that it's an opportunity for us to discover additional growth. And oh my gosh, pivoting is painful. And it's something that I think all of us are living through in some way, shape, or form or fashion in our personal and professional lives this year. So I want you to pause and ask a couple of questions. Why you? Why now? What's next? 3 very simple questions, but it's going to give you the opportunity when you're thinking about how are you reorienting and reshifting and shaping what's next in your career and what's next with your business. And I want you to evaluate that personally and professionally and think about that. I'll give you a personal example. Remember my limping story here. I started, when I got married, I was suddenly realizing that I wanted to have a family. And I went through several obstacles in terms of having a baby. And I remember saying the pace of my job and the pace of my work, if I envision being a mother, I know what kind of mother I want to be, and I want to be more present than I was able to be right now. And I said, I got to do something different. I got to pivot and change my business model. And I recognized that I was not a technologist, but I knew that I wanted to scale, and scaling was only going to happen if I took the time to invest and draw back from what I was doing, sacrifice some revenue, sacrifice some time, and really refocus on creating a valuable proposition against a problem. So one of the keys in terms of evaluating where you are right now is what is the problem you're trying to solve, and looking at the problems in the world right now. And I recognized that there was a problem in retaining women, particularly women of color as well, in these corporations. I've been employed by several of them. And I said, what if there was a way to change the model that focused on creating sacred sisterhood and creating a community where women could advance and it could be scaled? And it was scary. I didn't know what I was doing. I was uncertain of how it would be received, but I started the conversation, and that created a pivot for our business, which took us into technology. And we created the Brand Leadership Institute, an online community supporting women and developing them in a way that allowed them to overcome the hidden barriers of leadership. And we were able to do that. And then over the last 4 years, had hundreds of women in corporate America served, 32% promoted, 12%, 80% retention, and 100% of these women purpose-driven. And doing it in the lens that's bringing women of all backgrounds together. Really powerful with multicultural women, but also bridging the gap between a shared sisterhood of women of color and women who are not women of color. And so that was the opportunity to pivot, is to step back and align personal life and professional life goals to say, as your business is growing, what is it that you want? How many of you can attest to any of these quotes? Could it be you? Honestly, I feel trapped by my career or the job or the company that I've built. I wasn't passionate about who I was serving or the business model I created. And a lot of us are pushing against what we did before. And now is the time for us to step back and ask some questions. Why me? Why now? What's next? And how do we reshift and change it up? Because there's an opportunity in this moment. This is a great example of Anita, and she talks about how she was able to meet the deadline, but at the cost of her health. So she had to step back and ask herself questions like, is this worth it? And is the way that I'm going about doing it for this particular project, was it worth it to put my team on it versus delegating it and hiring someone in to help? And sometimes we don't have that luxury, right? Because we're cutting costs. And this time, you know, you may be letting people go and you're saying, you know what, it's time to shift our whole business model. Maybe we can do it online. Maybe now we can do it through a strategic alliance and partnership for distribution. There's a lot of ways to shift what we're doing, but we have to think about it and not be so tied to the past that we don't give ourselves permission to pivot. Another great example as the founder of Impossible Burger. I love his example because on sabbatical, he discovered and created the concept of Impossible Burger, which is alternative meat. He's a professor at Stanford, but that was not what he was doing. But in the time that he took a break, time he rested and he was reflecting and creating and exploring what could be, his business is now worth $4 to $5 billion. So from professor to, you know, leading $1 billion business, he was able to pivot in a time where he took the time to reinvest and reinvent. What could that be for you? I believe riches are in niches. So a lot of times this opportunity gives us the chance to look at, am I spreading myself too thin? Am I trying to offer too many services, too many things to too many people? A hand sanitizer, right? Who would have thought this company Soft Soap, a soapbox, actually was making soap and happened to also make hand sanitizers. Their business, the hand sanitizer business over the last several months has indexed like over 1,400%. And they happen to be talking, they were talking to Starbucks for 18 months and didn't get a purchase order. And then suddenly COVID happened and they had a purchase order. And then suddenly they were on the phone with Wegmans, a grocery retailer. And they said, oh yeah, we happen to make hand sanitizers too, as well as soap. And they said, oh yeah, that's great. We'll take 1 million units tomorrow. I mean, so the pivot can go the other way, right? Sometimes you're thinking it's pushing it one way, but being flexible, repositioning yourself, sharing, we also do this. And oh my gosh, the floodgates open for this brand called Soapbox. So health check for you, mastering the pivot. I'm gonna give you lots of lists, but you can take it back. We're gonna give you the sheet, so do not feel overwhelmed. Revisit your vision, refocus your strategy, and stay on top to be to build, reposition, and rethink. I'm going to do this one. Reconnect and thank your customers. I think that's a really important one to do. A lot of times we're saying we don't know where any more business is going to come from, but if you can find a way to reconnect with your existing customers, thank them. Tell them how much you appreciate them. Let them know that you're here for them, that we're in this together. What can I do for you? Just keeping those lines of communication open will keep you top of mind to sell at the right time. And also realize that sometimes it's just about timing. Pivot is a hidden growth strategy, but we have to let go of fear of the future and embrace the change. And sometimes this is why the power of vision is so powerful, because seeing the future and seeing it before it happens allows you time to prepare. I didn't know that COVID was going to happen. I didn't know that we were going to shift to all online learning. But 5 years ago, I got the vision that I wanted to create a scalable platform. Now our business is ripe and continuing to grow even through this time because of a vision that was set. So that's why starting with the MVP creates opportunities even when you may not see them today. Importance of well-being and work, being those aligned. And I think from an enterprise perspective, if you're on the line, I think it's important to double down on what's working, redefine your business model for scale, and invest in new partnering relationships. Our final brand me recipe step is build your platform. I saw so many comments from what you guys shared about this. Like, you want to know how to get greater exposure, greater visibility. You want people to recognize you as an industry expert. I get it. And all of us want to be recognized. Nobody wants to be undervalued. Nobody wants to come in 200 out of 200, right? We want to be number one. We want to be at least in the top 10. So let's talk about how we build a platform. And I believe a platform that can last. As I said before, your brand isn't what you say. It's what others believe. So it's an opportunity for all of us right now to envision, and I want you to think about it and write it down. What is it that you want others to say about your brand? What do you want to be known for? What's the first 3 words that you want someone to say when they think about your name? You can put them in the chat because someone might be listening and watching who could help you. But the idea is to be intentional about building the brand that you want to see. I'm going to give you 3 strategies, again, from my playbook, and what I have seen to work as someone who's done this for myself, and I coach others on this as well. Elevate your voice outside of the noise, prioritize diverse partnerships, and build your tribe. So a great example of this is Uber Eats waiving delivery fees for Black-owned restaurants. I'm sure you all have heard of that in the wake of George Floyd. You know, instead of just saying, how can we get involved? And again, not just talking about it, but putting their dollars and their strategy and their business behind those causes. Right now is a great opportunity for you to do that, and doing it in a smart way that defines your difference and that also helps people continue to support your cause and your business. Next is Oprah and Apple. So I know everyone's like, oh, we always use Oprah as an example, but I think it's important. The principle here is finding what you're good at. So her core, her point of differentiation is content. Apple is moving into streaming, their distribution. So creating a content distribution model is a great opportunity for you. So thinking about in your space, in your world, where do you play and how can you leverage the power of relationships? Someone brings something complementary, but distinctly different from what you do. And that can create an opportunity to elevate you, bring the power of 2 people together, 2 organizations together, greater than the individual. I'll give you an illustration again from our playbook. The She-Suite Summit started back in Atlanta. The first iteration of this event was, I believe, in 2010. It's been around for now 5 years in the DC metro area. We've expanded beyond the She-Suite Summit to the She-Suite community. And our whole approach to this is helping create community, bringing women together to level up and focusing on personal brand as the key to creating success and significance in life. And one of the things that we had to do this year to pivot is that we actually, a day, 24 hours before our event was scheduled March 13th, 24 hours before our event, March 11th, COVID was pronounced a global pandemic, and our governor canceled all events, and we pivoted this to a virtual event in less than 36 hours. It had never been done before. We had never done that before, and it was definitely not our intention, but we were able to do that with the help of partners and also pulling on our strength of online content. And what I will say to you is, many of you are saying, well, how do you begin to build partners? And one of my secret sauces to this is definitely beginning to build your track record of success and not being afraid to reach out to people that you do not know. I remember our first event, I think we partnered with Bloomingdale's because we were in Phipps Plaza in Atlanta. And my friend worked for Cadillac, and she got Cadillac to give us a little bit of money back in 2010. And over the last 5 years, these are all of the partners that we've worked with and built relationship with and continue to build with them. And it's all about, how do you tell your story, show your value, and solve a problem. So as you're thinking about leveraging partnerships, show your value, define a problem, and elevate the partner as a part of your solution. And so I think it's important, again, we don't have time to dive into all this in detail because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A, is follow these. I will tell you my favorite one out of this is define your top 10 partners. I want you to go big. I don't want you to think small. I want you to go big. I want you to think big. I remember I defined CNN as one of my strategic media partners, and I did a pitch and I shared with them. I got on air one time and I shared with them my book and a CD at the time. And by the time it was done, I had my own segment on CNN for a year. I'm telling you what I know to be true. It's about consistency over time, perseverance, and also packaging your story and showing your value. It's integrity that people are looking for. So final takeaways for this point, I will share with you a great resource is Haro. We talked about media. It's a free resource that you can subscribe to, and it will send to you every day articles that are looking for contributors. So definitely take a look at Haro. Make sure that you create your own proven track record toolkit, I like to say, because that's where you are going to be able to start to put together that powerful one sheet that tells you who you are, what you do, what's your unique value, and what the value is to the partner. And as you continue to go out and outreach to people, more people will come along with your vision. I will also tell you, no one will invest in you until you invest in you. So you got to go out on the limb. You got to put your money where your mouth is first. And as you do that, and as people see vision and see it in action, they're going to say, wow, you did it. You did it with integrity. I want to be a part of that. And then they join, and then they join, and it just kind of builds from there. I want to challenge those of you who are on the line from enterprise. There are tons of amazing women who are looking for the opportunity to partner with you. And I think that now is an even greater time to change the model, shift from the status quo, bring fresh voices, fresh ideas. Even though they may be under the radar, they've been working behind the scenes. And that's the opportunity that we're going to be able to do to create meaningful change in these organizations. So wrapping up, because I want to save time for Q&A. I know we started a little bit behind after the intros and the video, but just refresher, part 1 was the MVP mentality. Part 2 is permission to pivot. And part 3 was build your platform. I want to know what you're going to commit to do. We are not leaving here without you putting it out there, what you're going to commit to do. One of those 3, I want to see you in the chat. Say, this is what I'm going to commit to do, to take action on and be accountable to, find an accountability partner to do so. I also want to give you a free offer. I love gifts. This is my birthday month and I'm in the giving spirit. And I hope that you are in the receiving spirit, because we have a wonderful gift for you. It's really the case study of how we pivoted with the She-Suite Summit, but beyond that, how you can pivot. So again, we don't have enough time to go through all of this content in depth today, but this is free if you go to velvetsuite.com/eCourse. And if you're working for an enterprise, a large organization, there's one version for you. And if you're looking as an individual, I'm working as a smaller enterprise, or as an individual, there is one there for you as well. Last thing I'll share with you is I do a free weekly coaching video as well. That's a part of our content. It's called Melissa Motivation. I send it out every Monday. You can go to Melissa Dawn Simkins, my personal website. The other was our company website, and you can get a dose of Melissa Motivation there. I think we're at Q&A time.
Well, good. And I see a lot. I've been following the chat. So first of all, thank you. That was amazing. Such great information. And again, you all will get some of that information in checklists and takeaways after the session. But I want to get right into the Q&A, because a few notable questions did pop up. And the first is, and I think, we can all acknowledge the fact that, we're in very unusual times right now, particularly for women of color who are trying to navigate in a professional world, in their jobs and in their community relationships. And one of the questions we had is, how much, or can you separate your personal brand from your professional brand? And I guess as a woman of color operating in a professional environment, how are you really able to balance your truth as a woman of color, versus what you're trying to establish as a professional brand?
Yes, I am of the belief that there's only one you. So you have different dimensions to you, but there's just one. So I am of the belief that you need to manage your brand as one enterprise. How you manage your home, how you manage your career and your work life, it's still you. And the stress that we put on ourselves of trying to compartmentalize and be different people in different places is exhausting. It is stressful, and it's not our truth. So we have to determine how we show up in these environments, but don't show up without being who you authentically are. And I think now more than ever, and I literally am talking and coaching intimately with women of color every single day, they are feeling more bold about being in that truth than they ever have before. And I've seen it over time. And so I think we have to own that's a scary place, and it's true, but we also have to recognize that your brand is everything about you, and leaving some of those elements of your story and your experience out is going to not bring your full value to the table when it matters most for your employer or for your clients or for your business. Yeah,
that's a really great perspective. And I know a lot of us are struggling with that right now. But you said a word, and I swear it resonated with my spirit. You said exhausting. And I hear that a lot in the women I'm talking to. And I think, a lot of us were exhausted already from just the pandemic. But, layered on top of this, all of what this social upheaval, that we're experiencing right now is causing for women of color, I keep hearing that word exhausting. And so one of the questions was, where do you find and how do you balance personal care, again, versus getting out your professional brand, communicating, and so many of the other things that you were saying are necessary to really establish a brand, but really finding also that personal balance.
It's hard, right? Because we are go-getters, we work hard, we put a lot into our businesses. And one of the things that I think is important for anyone to succeed in areas that they're weak in is accountability. So I find accountability buddies and partners in every facet of what I do, because I think that, I need accountability for fitness. My husband helps keep me accountable to taking time off, and you said you're going to get away from the computer, step away. Okay. And it becomes a habit. So finding people who can help keep you accountable is really important. And then making a commitment and valuing yourself first.
Okay, great. Sharon Chisholm is asking a question that I think is particularly appropriate for this audience. And that is, what is your advice from someone who is considering a pivot away from corporate America into entrepreneurship?
Oh, it's a great question. I think you got to really count the cost. You got to really assess the why, getting clear on the why, and understand there's give and takes. And so my first response based on my experience is to do an assessment and really get clear on why you want to make the shift. Next, count the cost, right? Financially, lifestyle, time in life. There's a certain time that it may be more convenient, and times it may not be. And then make the decision on what's the path forward. How are you going to prepare for that? Because I believe it's something you want to prepare for, and that you can prepare financially, you can prepare by putting together a business plan, you can prepare by assessing your relationships, because I believe your network is your net worth. So really looking and assessing those relationships, because who's going to help you get the leg up, and really then taking the time to then make the call. If it's what you're going to do it. But I would say be very thoughtful and intentional, and have that vision, have that purpose, and have that mission.
Listening to you today, one could hardly believe that you called yourself an introvert. But Shakita Williams wants to know, and I agree, this is a great question. What does recovering introvert really mean to you, and how did you get from there to where you are now?
I'm very comfortable I'm more comfortable not being in front, believe it or not. The shift came in that I discovered my why. I went through it when I was, and I'll just share this quick story. I was 24. My boyfriend, who I thought I was going to marry at the time, was 27, and he died suddenly. He had a heart attack. I was working in corporate America at the time. And at that moment, my life was devastated. My last call with him was about us preparing to live in the same city so we could go through preparing for marriage. And what I discovered in the process of healing and getting back to my mission, vision, purpose was that I love people. I love people, and I love branding, and I love people. And so people, my love for people, and my love to see people really become their highest, greatest self gets me out of my own way. So when I get ready to talk, I'm not thinking about me. I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, there's a woman on this line who just lost her business, and from the riots, and she's like, I need a last resort. There's someone on the line who potentially is saying, I just want to quit. I'm done. I can't continue to reinvent. I'm exhausted. I'm over it. So I have to think about those individuals, and that drives me to push past my own, my own issues.
Yeah. So look, I know we're short on time. I could talk to you all day, and I know we have tons more questions. So people are going to want to know how to get involved. But one of the questions we specifically had was on your Brand Leadership Institute. So just tell people and remind people again how to get involved with that.
Sure. So the Brand Leadership Institute is offered twice a year. It is a 24-week online leadership accelerator. We specifically target right now corporations who are looking to advance women beyond the gap, all women, but particularly women of color as well. So it's an online-based community. We also are launching a similar program with the She Suite community, which will be an MVP course that'll be happening this fall. So the best way to get in touch with us about our services and products is at velvetsuite.com. And the email I will give you is Melissa, M-E-L-I-S-S-A, at Velvet Suite, VELVETSUITE.com. And we have a breadth of services. And so we also have a coaching program. So would love to share more about any of those programs with your direct outreach.
All right, great. And I know that also in the chat, Jill, Lindsay, Audrey have been very diligent about answering some of your questions, but also posting information. We have some links to all of Melissa's social sites and other contact information that you can use. So please scroll up and down that so you can get that information. And I just want to, as we bring this program to a close, again, thank you so much. This was a breath of fresh air at a time when, we're all looking for positive reinforcement, for ways to really stay motivated in the world we're living in and try and keep moving forward. And I think that's the important thing, is just to keep moving forward. The fact that we had so many people on this call suggests that we are all looking for that kind of reinforcement. So thank you so much for everything that you've given to us today, all the little nuggets and the takeaways that we will absolutely be able to use immediately. I do want to follow up and again thank WBENC for this amazing series. This Women of Color Power Hour is such a great opportunity to reach out. Many of you all who are on this recording, on this video session right now are certified, but many of you are not. I want you to remember to reach out to WBENC and to make sure that you're getting more information. And you want to go to WBENC.org, that's WBENC.org. And then you go to the Women of Color Subscribe. That way you can stay engaged with everything that's going on with the Women of Color programming that's happening through WBENC. Don't let this be the last time you tune in. If it's your first, stay with us. We promise there'll be more programming to come. Also on WBENC.org, you can get information on all 14 regional partner organizations. And those are the certifying arms of WBENC. And we'll be able to help you with whatever questions you have, and certainly through the certification process as well. I want to thank finally our Women of Color sponsors. Again, we can't do anything without them. The Coca-Cola Company, Walmart, JP Morgan Chase & Co., and the Southern California Edison. Thank you all so much today. Really appreciate, again, everybody being on here and taking time out of your day. We look forward to our next Women of Color Power Hour session. Stay engaged, stay informed, and stay with WBENC.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.